I fought the government. I never closed back down and stayed open. But because I had painted, that movement, that choice had painted me as a conservative icon, the left targeted me as well. I think that there was a blatant attempt to destroy our constitutional republic. And now we're watching them jump through hoops trying to do damage control. I think the greatest blessing we could ask for is that they would push Kamala Harris in, because she is very unpopular. Very few people like her. She is a joke. We know scientifically that life begins at conception. And so to wiggle on that topic for votes or not for votes or to win over, I just think that when someday we're going to stand in front of Jesus and say, but Lord, I needed the votes, and that is not going to fly.
The Association of Mature American Citizens is the conservative voice for Americans 50 and older. AMAC is fighting for the values that you hold dear. Join today. Together, we can write the course of America.
Hello, everyone. I'm Rebecca Weber. You're watching Better for America, and I'm so glad to have you with me today. Joining me now is a terrific gal. Her name is Lindsay Graham, and she is the Patriot Barbie. She is a loud, proud, pro-gun, pro-life, Jesus-loving, red-blooded conservative, and we're just thrilled to have her with me today. She's a fierce voice for conservative women and a Spitfire advocate for small business owners. She's an authentic patriot standing for American values, but more than that, Lindsay Graham is truly an example of how one voice in a small town can spark a movement. In 2020, she reopened her salon against the state's unlawful COVID mandates and became a symbol of government resistance. Now, this sparked a national conversation about the rights of business owners. And since then, she has gone on to be a conservative role model and an activist on government overreach, cancel culture, and the woke agenda. She is the co-founder of Pretty Little Patriot and is a published author and podcast host. Lindsay, welcome to the program. I am thrilled to have you with me today.
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for such a lovely introduction.
Well, I really fell in love with your story. I think it's truly inspirational. And you've done so much over the last number of years. More Americans need to learn about you, follow you, watch you, listen to you, because you've got so many great things to say and share. Recently, a couple years back, you did publish a book targeted One Mom's Fight for Life, Liberty, and the Pursuit of Happiness. Can you tell us a little bit about this book and your personal story? What motivated you to publish this book?
Absolutely. Well, so back in 2020, as you previously stated, I became global news for opening my 5,000 square foot salon against government lockdowns. I had 25 stylists. People were afraid of opening back up, not because of COVID, but because of what the government would do to them if they defied. And that choice actually cost me everything. I opened up, I had the government target me for weeks and weeks. I fought the government. I never closed back down and stayed open. But because I had painted, that movement, that choice had painted me as a conservative icon, the left targeted me as well. And I was receiving death threats, being called names, slandered, and completely canceled. When the riots started, Antifa in Oregon said they were going to burn my salon down and attack me. I issued a call to arms, and I protected my legacy, 14 years of hard work building my businesses. And that's when I really got cancel cultured. We had to actually close all of our businesses, all 6 businesses, sell our dream home, and move to Arizona. I went through an identity crisis, had no idea what God was doing in my life or why he had allowed this to happen. And I prayed for a sign as to what I should do, and that God would kind of reveal to me his plan. And through 4 different people in a 12-hour period, he told me to write a book, which I was very confused by because I've never written a book. And I thought, I'm going to write a book about what, like defying the government for, 3 weeks. That'll be boring. But as I started writing the book, I really felt God speaking to me about how he had prepared me for this time in my life, that the things that I had been through in my 20s, But I've always wondered why he would allow, those had prepared me and strengthened me and emboldened me to be this public figure in this time. So the book ended up being my testimony, 367 pages of not just how I defied the government, but how God has used all of the circumstances in my life to prepare me to stand in the ground in which I was called. So it's very, very encouraging, very inspiring. It tells all the details about, what the government did to me, including graphics of all the letterheads that were sent to me legally, how badly the cancel culture came for me. And really now just the end of the book is that I trust that the Lord's going to do some amazing things in my life. I give my whole life to him. And now, 3 years later, we're seeing the fruits of his promise and his faithfulness.
Oh, that is such a beautiful story. Really, really uplifting. And you're right. Cancel culture, it has been on the rise for years now, but Americans really do feel it. Those who don't go along with the radical left and the progressive Democrats who currently are in power, we are canceled. We're targeted. We see these proposed sweeping changes to Title IX. This is hurting girls. They're getting punished if they refuse to compete in sports with males. Their safety is compromised. We see attacks against our U.S. flag. I saw a recent clip that you posted. It's hard to find the U.S. flag emoji anymore. I mean, this stuff is insane. There's an attack against the American family, individual liberty, justice for all. What can more people do to fight this evil attack against traditional American culture and really the family, which I always say is the incubator of freedom?
Yeah, I mean, there is a very clear call to action in America right now, and it is to vote with your dollars. And I think you guys understand this at AMAC because you're doing what needs to be done, creating a parallel economy in which on an everyday basis, most women, men, moms, dads cannot go out and go into full-time activism, which is what people think they need to do to make change. And that's just not true. You can take a little bit of time, do a little bit of research, and be moving your money to companies that do not fund the left, that do not fund the indoctrination of children, that do not fund the abortion movement, and vote with your dollars. I mean, there are multiple companies that I represent on my platform wholeheartedly that I endorse that involves just doing that very, very simple task, which everyone can do. Ditch Amazon and shop at a conservative online store, payment processing, ditch Stripe and PayPal and process with a conservative processor, shop at my brands. Everyone can do that. Everyone can drive a couple extra miles to go to a coffee shop that isn't Starbucks and spend a few extra dollars and support a family-owned company. Those little tiny things, we all know that there are more of us than there are of them. And the more radical the left gets, the more they push middle ground people towards conservative values. So if we know that there are more of us and we all actively voted with our dollars and supported companies that align with our values, we would be in a completely different America right now. I firmly believe that.
That's exactly right. And you gave me a great opening because I can't resist to tell people here listening today, remind your friends and family to come to AMAC, not AARP, who for years has given more and more money to the Democrat Party, who supports abortion, who's donated to Planned Parenthood, who stood in support of the Inflation Reduction Act, which we know did not reduce, inflation, and who is for Medicare for all, who supported Obamacare, and really isn't representing your voice in Washington. So AMAC is the conservatives' alternative. I want to remind people, vote with your dollars, join AMAC, ditch the AARP. I had to say it. I had to say it, Lindsay, because that is a big part of our message to our members. So what do you see now? We know what recently happened with the Democrat Party here. We see, for the first time in history, a sitting president who says, I'm not going to run for re-election. His vice president who says, I'm going to run, but Joe is great. Joe is, his health is not compromised. Well, if his health isn't compromised, shouldn't he run? I mean, what do you think? I guess because you talk to a lot of people and you've sort of talking to the feet on the street. How do you think this is going to affect the 2024 election, this swap of Joe Biden out and potentially Harris running against Trump?
Well, I think that right now it's safe to say that the world is a stage. We are watching them do acrobatic theatrics for us, trying to control narratives, using the media, using propaganda, indoctrination, brainwashing. I think it's not ironic at all that there would be an assassination attempt on a past president and running presidential candidate, and that within those 2 days, suddenly we see like a massive shift in the current presidential structure as well. I don't think that's ironic. I think that there was a blatant attempt to destroy our constitutional republic. And now we're watching them jump through hoops trying to do damage control. I think the greatest blessing we could ask for is that they would push Kamala Harris in, because she is very unpopular. Very few people like her. She is a joke. She should not be in a presidential seat, not even a vice presidential seat. And I say that as a woman, right? Women should support women. I'm not going to support someone that doesn't even understand what the word woman is and then vote for her because she's a woman. So I think the greatest thing they could have done was shoot themselves in the foot, and whatever their agenda is, God is on the throne, and it's going to be worked for our good, I'm certain.
Amen. Yeah. I mean, that's a great point. You and I both, we see through it. We see that, you know, she's running on this abortion issue, really is reproductive freedom is what she's calling it, which is just more babies being killed in the womb. And she doesn't understand, where she's ignoring the real facts, medical records and historical records that we have that do show that so much of what she's in support of is actually hurting women. And is not good for women, you know, these chemical abortions. And the fact that drug cartels, for example, are buying up these pills and feeding them to young women and girls that they're trafficking. And she's ignoring that kind of thing. So if she was really for women, she'd care about who's coming over the border. She'd care about women's health. And she'd care about preserving life. So to me, it's very, very black and white. I mean, we have to remember... you know, and we have to be reminded that there exists good and evil, and woe to those who call evil good and good evil. And it seems to me that we're seeing a lot of that in leadership. While the Democrat Party is running on things like reproductive freedom and other issues that aren't, you know, climate, you know, electric vehicles, these are issues that really are not, I think, at the heart of what American people are worried about today. What do you believe that should be sort of the top priority for the conservatives, the Republican Party, in the 2024 election?
Oh man, we talk about the abortion issue like it's the biggest, and I honestly think it is. I think the fact that we're murdering our own society, we're murdering our own babies, is the most vile thing that this country is living in right now. It's Sodom and Gomorrah stuff, in my opinion. And yet they call it so controversial. It's like, that's what's going to win the election, what's not. So we have to compromise on these values. And I just think that the time is over for us to be compromising what you know to be right and true. When you know something to be right and true and you compromise anyway, that's even worse than when you're just ignorant about the topic. We know scientifically that life begins at conception. And so to wiggle on that topic for votes or not for votes or to win over, I just think that when someday we're going to stand in front of Jesus and say, but Lord, I needed the votes, and that is not going to fly. And I know the conservative party isn't also the Christian party. I just believe that most Christians are conservatives because of the value system. But I think that if you're a believer, your party needs to come last and your God needs to come first. And when you're convicted in your beliefs in that manner, it should not matter what the votes are going to do or what the election is going to do or how to get into office. What matters is that we stand in truth. So we're seeing a lot of the parties start to waver on topics because it's controversial and we need to meet in the middle. And I just firmly believe that as we meet in the middle, we give them more ground to cross the line. And that's what we've been seeing happening for the last 10, 20, maybe more, is they're pushing the limit. Well, then we compromise so that we're not the bad guys being controversial. And then they take and take and take. And so I think it's time for us to step back into truth and take our truth back.
I love hearing that. I do agree with you. I think that a lot of Republicans are running away from the abortion topic altogether. And of course, we see what the left is doing there. Twisting words to make young girls think that somehow their life will be threatened if a pro-life president is in office. But I agree. I think Republicans could do a much better job calling out the extremism that we see, calling out the facts, showing that how abortion is largely, it's the taking of a life, and we know that women suffer after abortion, emotionally and oftentimes physically. So I think education around the issue is so important, and doing that with love, doing that with help, support. That's where I think more Americans would say, that's where I'd want my taxpayer dollars going, and not to take the life of the baby, but to help the life of the mother and that baby's future life. So more work needs to be done, and I love that you are just, really speaking truth and from the heart. Thank you for sharing that. A couple more questions. I want to turn a little bit to our children and talk about the attack against our children and what's happening to them in schools. I've been saying that I'm shocked to see, Governor Gavin Newsom saying we've got to ban the schools' right to make it mandatory to notify parents if their child is going through some difficulty, wanting to transition. Children being forced to use pronouns that are just made up. And then a curriculum that's really completely embraces DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion, and critical race theory. What are your thoughts on the Department of Education and really transparency in schools? Shouldn't parents have more access and control over what their children are being taught?
Yeah, parents should have all the access, every single thing. This is a controversial topic, but I'm going to say it. I think that there should be cameras in school classrooms. I think that parents should be able to see exactly what teachers are saying, doing, not just the curriculum. We know that these Democrat teachers, these liberal teachers especially, have no problem going around the curriculum, making comments here and there. I've heard it firsthand from my followers, things that were said to their children in public schools. So I think that there needs to be a massive movement of parents removing their children from public schools if it's at all possible. I think that is going to change a lot of children's lives. But if we cannot do that and the public school system is going to remain, I think there needs to be so much transparency that no teacher could get away with any kind of side comment, indoctrination, or punishment for these conservative children. And that law that you speak of in California that Newsom just passed is so interestingly worded, because if a child has decided that they're going to, quote, change their gender or begin some kind of treatment or go by a different name, the teacher should be allowed to potentially tell the parent, right? But he bans, not that they can, or that he bans so that they cannot at all. Like, he completely bans communication by the teacher to the parent on something that is crucial to the parent. Banned. It's not even, it's not mandatory that you report. I ban you from telling the parents. It is so gross and overstepping as far as parental rights that it's unquestionable that would be a complete division between a parent and their child.
Yes, and also an attack on our First Amendment right of free speech, and really pitting children against parents and attacking the family, attacking the nuclear family. And that's really where it's at. And it's rooted in these Marxist ideas, and it's infiltrating all of America. It really is, as you say, it's disgusting. It's something that should get everybody who's listening and every American to say, I better vote for the people who are going to stand up for the future generation of this country. Otherwise, we won't have a country. Lindsay, before we let you go, you are involved with so many other patriotic and conservative initiatives, and you've got this incredible apparel company, the Patriot Barbie shop, and you've co-founded this fashion brand, Pretty Little Patriot. Can you tell us more about this and how people can check you out, your website, and as well as your podcast, please? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I took a break from entrepreneurialism after I got canceled in Oregon, about 3 years. And then this last year, the Lord has just opened up doors for me to jump back into that circle, but with intention and purpose this time. So, brands that honor and love America and honor God, honor the nuclear family, unapologetically pro-life, all of those things. So Pretty Little Patriot is my fashion brand. This top is actually from there. And our logo is an XX, which stands for XX chromosomes. Women only are allowed to wear our clothes. My merch store is, very Jesus and patriotic. It's like hats and t-shirts, sweatshirts. I own a payment processing company that's patriotic called Patriot Ventures. I endorse a movement to ditch Amazon, which funds abortions for their employees, and endorse My Freedom Cart, which is conservative, toxic-free, made in America shopping. So all of those brands, all of them, which have been years in the works, have a home on patriotbarbie.com. So if you go to my website, which is patriotbarbie.com, you'll be able to find everything business-wise that I'm doing and endorse.
Just terrific. Wow, this is really great. Lindsay Graham, she is the Patriot Barbie. Be sure to check out her podcast. What is the name of your podcast?
So my podcast was called the Patriot Barbie Podcast, but it's on hold right now because I've got too much going on. So, but it's on, all the platforms.
Terrific. So people should check that out, and maybe you'll come back. Maybe you and I can co-host a podcast together. We've got so much more to talk about, so little time, but I thank you for being with me, and I do hope to have you back with me again.
Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, and to all of you out there listening, thank you so much for tuning in. Be sure to join or renew your AMAC membership. Be sure to tell friends and family all about AMAC. We are fighting for you. God bless you all. Have a wonderful day, everyone. We'll see you next time.
The Association of Mature American Citizens is the conservative voice for Americans 50 and older. AMAC is fighting for the values that you hold dear. Join today. Together, we can write the course of America.